What's up, guys? Time for another dad story. So this one isn't so much of a funny story like the last one about the drumsticks out on a day of riding four-wheelers and shooting guns, as much as it is just an experience, something that happened to me as I was transitioning from, being your father's son and somebody that's kind of looked at as, well, he's just a kid, we keep him around, he's cheap labor, he does things for us and we kind of can't get rid of him, to he is a man, he's working alongside us, someone that will be respected because they demand it now, whereas coming from a place that they've earned it for 18 years. This was around that time of my life, and in 1998 I graduated high school. That is the year that my dad partnered up with two of his best friends, Paul Plumley, who owns the Rib and Loin barbecue restaurant in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and Harold Stinnett, who was a farmer in Subligna, Georgia, and who just came from decades and generations of families that owned a lot of land, have farmed it, everything from soybean and cotton to just doing wheat, straw, and hay. So either way, the three unlikely men that would end up coming together and being best friends were my dad and Paul and Harold. Don't want to get into the story of how the three of them met, but as you could imagine, if you can picture three of the most completely different walks of life coming together and finding something about the others that they all enjoy being around, made them a very comical group to hang out with. Harold was one of these old guys. He was the male equivalent of what you would probably refer to today as a cat lady, except it wasn't cats, it was boxes of cereal. The man carried with him a box of cereal everywhere he went, and he did not travel anywhere without totes full of breakfast cereal. And he carried those totes and traveled with him as if they were precious cargo. But he made seriously awesome moonshine, so of course he had a lot of friends, and my dad, being who he was when it came to putting away whiskey and drinking moonshine, didn't take the two of them long to become really good buddies. So even though Harold was much older than my dad, they still were from the same neck of the woods in northwest Georgia. Paul Plumley fit into that picture as a business owner in Chattanooga, wealthy man, owns a chain of restaurants that have done very well and made him millions. Ended up being someone that dated a gal. Her uncle ended up being Harold. Paul, who of course is more of a downtown Chattanooga playboy when it comes to entertaining the ladies and spending his money, liked to play redneck on the weekend, and so he got into guns. He bought himself a four-wheeler, and when he didn't have anyone in his circle of friends to do those activities with, he obviously was able to partner up with Harold, who was the uncle of this girl he was dating. And keep in mind, these are all men who are in their 40s at this time, and early 50s. Ends up having this land that he can utilize of Harold's in northwest Georgia when he comes down from Chattanooga to ride his four-wheeler, shoot guns, and sooner or later ends up meeting my dad. And that's how that friendship was formed. The two of them could not be more unalike in regards to the way they look, the business background they have, and what they do in regards to how they spend their money and their style. My dad was just a Chevy truck driving, Liberty overall wearing, below collar, hard-working American badass. And Paul Plumley was the same, but in a button-up shirt with a $60,000 SUV and a woman on each arm, and a $15,000 watch on his wrist. That was just his style, and he was definitely one of these type of men that is a name your price kind of guy, where my dad is one of these what can we trade out? I cut log homes, you have land, what kind of deal can we work up here on a trade? That's a little bit of kind of leading into the story of how we came upon our place out in Colorado. You could kind of fill in the blanks, but that is a large part of how it came to be. The land that we found in 1996 was initially approached by Paul in regards to buying from the owner as a name your price, I can afford it kind of deal, and which in Colorado they'll pay that much to keep people out. So turns out, once we did reveal to them that we were not from Texas, who they hate in Colorado, and that we were some good old Georgia boys, finally made it not about money. My dad knew the type of this man we were dealing with, knew that wasn't what they're about, and figured if he could get him on the phone, could probably strike up a conversation, possibly even generate a friendship there that could lead into the sale of this property. It had gotten sectioned off from Forestry Service and Wildlife Management from his ranch by a road that the county came through and cut, which basically cut it off of his land being his cattle using or going across it, but now had made it a perfectly boundaried piece of land with access made by the state, kept up by the county, that could be sold off for profit that he would otherwise never use. And until my dad got him on the phone, had no interest in it in regards to the price it would bring in money, but became interested in what he could trade for it in the form of a log package. So that is how that came to be. About a $20,000 value log package traded for 80 acres in Colorado, which would have been well into the several hundreds of thousands of dollar range of a piece of land. So there's that. There's more details that go along with it, but I want to tell you the story about when we were out there in 1999, maybe around 2000, which I can remember for two reasons in particular. Not that I'm very good with dates, but I'm good with cars and whether or not I was drinking for a situation. So I can remember I was not 21 because I was not able to drink legally, and number two, I was in my 99 Chevrolet Tahoe. So something I loved. To me, that was like being in a camper or mobile home compared to my Pathfinder I had before it. So when I was going out during those years, I would, as I worked and earned money working for my dad and Paul and Harold building our place, if they had to fly back or come back to Georgia on business, I had money in my pocket and a vehicle that I could sleep in, and of course, which was new and more reliable than anything else I'd ever had. Would spend weeks traveling all around out west in Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, New Mexico, you name it, and live out of the back of that Tahoe. So during that time, but not able to legally drink, whenever we were all together out at our place, it became something to look forward to on the weekend. We would all drive into town. Get a steak, hot meal, sleep on a warm, a soft bed, not in our vehicle or, taking a shower down at the creek or at the Dome Lakes. Turned out to be something, we'd look forward to and have a big weekend there in Gunnison. So in Gunnison, there were only 3 bars really back around that time that you could take your pick depending on what style of or what type of crowd you wanted to be around. Of course, Western State University is there in Gunnison, Colorado, so obviously you have your frat boy bar, which we avoided at all costs because Georgia boys and rednecks do not mix well with frat boys. And our next pick for a place to hang out that we could get along with the crowd was, of course, the Cowboys. So Timbers was the bar for the frat boys and the college crowd. We never even really stepped foot into. You could tell by the sidewalk outside that it was a bunch of Kelly fucking mama's boys on their trust fund trip into college and driving their Subaru hand-me-down. And then, of course, the other bar where the Cowboys hung out, which where we ended up usually, because they're also the only bar that had a couple of decent pool tables, was the Alamo. Don't bother looking it up. There was no sign. They just had one sign going down the wall in the front there above the sidewalk that said pizza. That was it. You had to go quite a bit to figure out it was called the Alamo. But they would let us bring our pit bull in that we always had with us from Georgia. Beautiful red-nosed pit named Sue B. Honey. And everyone loved her. We would go into the Alamo after having dinner at the Cattleman, a really great steak place that ended up burning down back in, I guess, 2001 or 2, just after I got to where I could finally go out there and be of legal age to drink and go that route with my dad and his buddies. But I had formed up a friendship with the owners of this place. In fact, the first real bar fight I had ever been in my life was in the Alamo with Mikey, my brother-in-law, who I've told you guys a little bit about from one of my other stories, the drumstick story in particular. That being said, the Alamo is where we would go, and also because I was not of legal drinking age, it was of importance that they would let me in, you know. And of course, with my dad and Paul and Harold spending hundreds of dollars on a bar tab for the three of them plus Mikey and any other workers my dad had come out from Georgia to help us, you know, they would always take care of the tab and pay for us guys in town on the weekend when we would go. That was a big deal too. For the 2 or 3 of us that were not 21, myself included, we could hang out. So our truck driver, his name was Harvey. He has a son named Loren, Loren. Fine young man, has turned into a hell of a man, and he's a stud badass. He is like a Rambo and a Clint Eastwood combined. Just a super great dude. As tough as the day is long, tougher than a $2 steak, as my dad would say. And wasn't a thing outdoors he couldn't do. Archery, bow hunting, shooting, field dressing, game, you name it, catching trout. The boy could do just about anything. Just a true outdoorsman in every sense of the word. And fucking was at 15, was doing this stuff, you know, 6 years younger than me, and ate, slept, and breathed it. So obviously was really excited about his opportunity to come out west. We were close enough in age we could hang out. Of course, like I say, I was 19. Harvey, our truck driver, was bringing out our front end loader. We were doing enough work out there on our property that we were kind of ready for some finished grade work. Our cabin was more or less built. We were cutting an extra road into it, and to be able to rent equipment the size of the stuff we had back in Georgia out there was the turnaround was as long as the trip was for us to just load up our own equipment and take it ourselves. Probably just as cost effective. So that's how it went down. We had Harvey bring our 910 cat front end loader out from Georgia. His son Loren rode with him, and Harvey needed to come back, grab our D6 cat dozer, and bring it back out too. 2 different trips. And during that month or so, he was going to drive back, load it, and then come back. Each trip being probably about a week, and then of course probably home for about a week. Figured he would just leave Loren out there under the supervision of my dad, if you can believe that, which my dad was not known for his babysitting skills, or for that matter looking out for anybody. He'd give you a pocket knife, show you where the North Star was, give you a cigarette lighter to build a fire, and that was it. You were on your own. If you wanted to eat a meal or felt like you needed to be in a safe place, you better have stuck close to his ass, because he didn't tell you when he was going, he didn't look for you before he was leaving, and he didn't update you on what he was doing on an hourly basis. So and out there to be watching you know, one of your employees' 15-year-old son and responsible for him. Let's just say Loren grew up real fast and figured out a lot of things quick when it came to running with Chris Walden. So I end up out there, my brother-in-law Mikey and I rode together, and as we arrive, Loren, of course, who is already out there with us, or with my dad, we all come together and we're in town. we end up having a weekend or so out there by ourselves. And around this time, my sister, who was pregnant with my niece, Mikey, and her daughter, ended up looking like she was going to go into labor, which Mikey knew and was prepared for to happen. But now this coming week, was planning on driving back to Georgia for the birth of his daughter. And so my dad and Paul and Harold had some business they needed to all come back for in Tennessee. We're going to catch a plane and fly back, which they flew out anyway, except for my dad. He, of course, was in his truck. That is what Mikey drove back to Georgia. And then, of course, that left Lauren and me out there, just the two of us by ourselves. And I'd been out there enough years to kind of have my head on straight about how to act, knew the places to go, most importantly, which places to stay away from. And so I had money in my pocket too that I could manage getting hotels in town. I knew what needed to be done out at our place for something to do during the week, and kind of had a list of stuff, and I was going to be okay. So everybody left, came back to Georgia or Tennessee, went their own separate ways. Lauren and I were on our own, and so we had worked for a week and decided, all right, it's time to go into town. So Friday comes, we're headed into Gunnison. We're on 50 going into town, and we passed one of these illuminated single axle trailer highway signs, or DOT signs, where they can put the message up on that, inform or warn you if there's any sort of a traffic situation ahead. And on this sign, lit up and flashing, it says "Law Enforcement Welcome," which was kind of odd. Thought, well, we know that there's cops in the town of Gunnison. There's a sheriff's department. County is able to get to it and access it. It's the middle of summer. It's not like it's inclement weather or anything. There's no forest fires going, and we're just kind of curious about what there could be that they're trying to recruit or invite extra law enforcement into town. If nothing else, just the fact that there's a welcome sign out here for them specifically that we've never seen years past, or for that matter, previous weeks before this entire summer, is now here flashing on the way into town. Once we pull into town, and of course you can see nothing is going on, led to even a little more confusion, and by this point was kind of unsettling, because as soon as you hit town, with Western State University campus there to your right, always something going on. Kids, they're everywhere. Students, they're active, coming and going. There's a McDonald's there, always packed right in front of the campus on your right. To your left, you have the Little League ball fields. There's even a Little League BMX track, which is just super cool. Of course, your skating rink and everything else there by the park, not a soul. No one is around, and it looks like the rapture's taking place. We can't figure out what is happening. I thought, well, maybe it's just kind of a fluke thing, and everybody is busy, or they're all inside. Maybe the school is out this week or something, and they've all went home. So it started getting really weird when we went to try to figure on getting a hotel room, and the Super 8 there in town was closed with their lobby doors locked, not taking any rooms or answering the door or answering their phone. So there was only one hotel in town that looked like it had any action going on in it, and it was the newest hotel. It was at Days Inn on the north side of town, going out of town towards Crested Butte. We saw hundreds of motorcycles, possibly upwards of 1,000 motorcycles in this parking lot. And again, I'm a Georgia boy. I see a crowd of anything on wheels, it's a show. It's a car show. It's a bike rally. It's a motorcycle show. It's cars and coffee. Who knows? But that's what I think of when I see this number of people with any sort of motorcycle or group of cars all, together in one place, especially if they're parked. So, and since it's the Days Inn, I thought, well, obviously people are staying there. Looks like that's where our hotel room is going to be. And lucky for us, hey, look, here's a motorcycle show or a bike rally going through. We can check out some of these motorcycles. So as I go to turn into the parking lot, the apparently their sergeant at arms or whoever it was has a folding chair out by the only entrance of this hotel, sitting on it. I pull up to this guy, and of course you can imagine the balls it would take to do this to a 6,000 pound lifted Chevrolet Tahoe. Leans back, and as I stop right there at him, I'm kind of getting ready to ask or see what's up, because he has it blocked off, and I figure he's going to open it up and let us in because I want to go park to get a room. He puts his boot up on my front bumper and just gives me this number to turn around and leave out the way I'm trying to come in. And he was a big dude, and there was only a few hundred of them, but I have just enough, piss and vinegar and badass enough in me to figure two things. Well, you're going to get your boot off my vehicle, or I'm going to take it off for you. And number two, if I live through that process, or he doesn't, replace his boot with my face, that I want to figure out what's going on and why I can't come in here and need to turn around. So just as I open my door and take a step to get out, here come about probably 10 to, best I can figure, 10 to 12 of these other guys walking over towards my Tahoe. And the guy asks me then, he said, "Man," he said, "you must have a death wish. What are you doing?" He said, "This property is taken." He said, "Not going to be any other people here for the weekend or staying." He said, "You need to leave." So sensing and being able to tell the trouble that I could get myself in if I said the wrong thing, decided, this is where I wise up a little bit, can see I'm outnumbered to the tune of a few hundred, and decide, okay, well, at least maybe I can get some information from this guy. And I asked him, I said, "Sorry, man, thought this was a bike show." Of course, he laughed at me like I was an idiot. He said, "No, boss, not a bike show." He said, "We're a gang." He said, "This hotel's closed." He said, "Piss off." So that was it. I decided to do exactly that, and put my vehicle in reverse, didn't even drive through the lot, backed out into the street, turned around, and was headed out of town. So the third bar, which I hadn't told you about up until now, and with the name fitting as it is, was our only option left there to check out and see if there was anything going on, was the Last Chance Saloon on the way out of town. Again, true to its name, towards Montrose, where we had spent a lot of time that entire summer while my dad and Paul and Harold were out with us. Turned out to be another place we really liked to go, because even though we could shoot pool at the Alamo, Last Chance Saloon had a really big parking lot that was easy to get in and out of, or to sleep in my car if for some reason we had snuck drinks or gotten served in there, that I could sleep in the parking lot. And also too had live music, which we really enjoyed. So I figured, well, we're going to go out here and figure out what's going on, why there is no place in town. There's only one hotel. It's being taken over by a motorcycle gang, and what the hell are we going to do? I want to get something to eat, and if there is nowhere to stay in town, we need to go ahead and figure out that we're going to be driving all the way back out to our place while it's early, because that's not a drive you want to make in the dark at night, in case something happens. So, because it's an hour and a half drive from town back to our place. So we drive out to the Last Chance Saloon, and we pull into the parking lot. There's not a soul there either, but I could see smoke pouring out of a barbecue pit, so it looked like that the food was going to be going, maybe able to get something to eat. And we walk in, and the owner of the Last Chance Saloon, whose name was John, who of course knew my dad and Paul and Harold, which inadvertently means that he and I have met, and we know each other well. In fact, he really liked us. He was from Arkansas, and us being Georgia boys, he felt closer to us than, of course, most other people that were out there in Colorado who were either just traveling through, on vacation, going through town, or some of the natives, of course, that lived there. The only people they really dislike and aren't really excited about hanging out with, or taking up all their places out there, are people from Texas. they hate people from Texas. but either way, as we go into Last Chance Saloon and we spark up a conversation with John, the first thing he asks us is, oh hell, where's your dad? Where's Chris? Where's Paul and Harold? He said, what are you guys doing in town? I said, well, hell, the same thing we do every weekend. We didn't think anything of it. They've gone back to Chattanooga. My sister's in labor. His daughter's about to be born. He drove back in my dad's truck and we're just out here. He said, well, damn. He said, I wish y'all had known. He said, y'all don't watch the news? No, we don't watch the news. There's no TV out there at our place. There was no cell service. A fucking carrier pigeon couldn't find that property. You're not going to get word of anything. If the world ends out there, you will be the last to know. And which we were in this case with Hell's Angels coming into town and also their rival gang, the Red Devils. And we are the only two under 21-year-old white boys in town, unsupervised, there for whatever is about to happen. So in a true gentleman form and as the good man he was, I guess held true to his word that if we ever end up out there, he'd help look after us. If he had ever had that conversation with my dad, which my dad wouldn't have asked, he was just the type of guy that would have offered it, but has now come that time, and I'm sure he didn't think it would be on a night that Hell's Angels are coming into town, and he's just hoping that they won't tear his place apart, being that he's put on a pig for him and it's going to be completely free, that they might spare his property, because anyone can clearly see if you've got 3,000 bikes showing up in Gunnison, Colorado, he has the only parking lot that can accommodate him. A really nice 2-acre flat ground gravel parking lot. So with the Red Devils already having taken over the Days Inn, and also too, people who were there walking out with their bags, being escorted out, getting in their cars and leaving, basically ran out of the property. We now have nowhere to stay, and John told us, he said, well, if you'll stay here, he said, sit at the end of the bar, keep your mouth shut, look straight ahead, don't say anything or interfere. He said, when they start coming in here, I'll let them know you're with me. There's nothing we can do about it, and that as long as I vouch for you guys and you sit here and you're not a problem, it should be okay, and we won't be taking up any more space or get in their way than those last 2 bar stools at the end of the bar. So that was the plan, and that's what we did. So either way, Lauren had got a bottle of Southern Comfort that he had snuck out of his dad's cab truck from underneath the seat, had it the entire time. Of course, I'm not 21, but I was right there, at 19 or 20. And we know we're not leaving anywhere, and that Lauren and I both are going to sleep in the back of my Tahoe that night in town. But we are parked at the Last Chance Saloon. There will be a band. There is a pig on outside, and we're going to at least be able to get some food. And we have nothing to do now but wait. And here they come. 3,000 of Hell's Angels coming in groups of 5, 10, coming in groups of 20 and 30, pulling up just by the hour. And it's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. This was way before any sort of social media, and I think about it often. If I could have had the picture of that Chevrolet Tahoe parked out front of Last Chance Saloon with about 3,000 of Hell's Angels surrounding it, with not a snowball chance in hell of going anywhere. It was absolutely stuck. I was more stranded and blocked in there than I have ever been in any off-road situation in my life. And I was on flat ground in a gravel parking lot, not moving. Absolutely stuck there for the night. And everything about it, though, oozed coolness to me. We really were digging the entire element, and something that we failed just ass backwards into turned out to be one of the coolest experiences. As they started coming in, and of course with their rockers, Bottom Rocker, Massachusetts chapter, and where these guys are from, or their vests and their patches, and the ground they had covered to end up in Gunnison, Colorado, was just absolutely amazing. Still, though, we're all we can see or find out about what's going on is what we can read and see. No conversations are being had, and as one of the Hell's Angels sat down to my left, the food is done. John comes in and kind of tells the guys that are there, who are already have kind of gotten parked and set up camp, that the food is ready, the pig is done. If they want to come out and make a plate, he's serving. So the guy bumps me with his elbow, looks over at me, and he says, "Come on, let's eat." Almost knocks me out of my bar stool and it scared me to death. I think I even jumped, and I didn't even look at him, just like John told me. I said, "No, sir." I said, "Y'all are welcome to it." I said, "I understand just to sit here and not get in y'all's way." I said, "That's for y'all, not me." And he looked at me, straight at me, not just out of the corner of his eye, and he said, "Let's eat. Get up." And I remember being on my feet at full attention. I think probably even a step or two ahead of him before he told me to get up again. When he said, "Let's eat," it was just, "Yes, sir." And I'll never forget Lauren and I standing there holding our paper plates, just looking straight ahead, just taking one step at a time to the right, just in a line with Hell's Angels, putting barbecue on our plate. And definitely the most out of place experience I'd ever had, with probably one of the coolest groups of guys you would ever meet, who had absolutely done things and seen and heard things that I'm sure you won't ever see in most movies. And these were the real thing, genuine article. But yeah, and I've heard other stories about Hell's Angels too. One of my other buddies, a different John, not the same one that owns the Last Chance Saloon in Gunnison, but tells me the story about how one of his buddies on a dual sport BMW riding up to Prudhoe Bay, Alaska, to spread his dead buddy's ashes up there at Dead Horse, was riding and came up on a camp and had a flat. Wanted to approach these other guys because all he could tell from far away is that they were motorcycles. And then once he got up close enough to them, where he obviously was not in their party or where they were, but they always set up a perimeter, and they have their, sergeant at arms or whoever it is, there basically as a guard, is sure as hell who you meet first, and they catch you before you get too close. And they ended up giving him a place where he could sleep, fed him, and they ended up getting him hooked up with fixing his flat tire and getting a tube in it. Even though he never met anybody else, and he wasn't partying with them, and he wasn't anywhere near their camp, but they still made sure he was close and taken care of. And just as a fellow rider, they considered him part of a brotherhood, not the inner circle, but definitely not somebody that they were against or an outcast, which was super cool. Even though I ride a Harley to this day. Back then I was just a kid, they didn't know me, but yes sir and no sir went a long way. Staying out of their way and respecting their space went a long way. And if anything, that's what actually will make them pull you in closer. So that's the story. A little bit of historical significance about Gunnison, and a cool fact about it, why they were there was not something random. Gunnison, Colorado has a reputation for, in the Wild West, being a place where if there were ever two rival outlaws that wanted to meet, that's where they would schedule. That was the location. Gunnison was a central location for that kind of thing. It's right in the very middle of the state, and easy to find. It's in between two valleys of a mountain range, and you can come from any direction basically through the state and find it. You will hit it, and that's what it was known for. And also too, the first bank of Gunnison, which was in operation up until this point then, was the first bank that Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid ever held up. So lots of cool facts about right there in town. And that was the night that we partied with Hell's Angels while their rival gang, the Red Devils, were across town, terrorizing the days in and kicking people out of it, which of course I rode in and thought it was a bike show. So fun story. I hope you liked it. Like I said, nothing really funny about it. It had its moments. A lot of the stuff I've experienced, of course, where you had to be there moments. But again, I like to be able to kind of document this stuff. I've had some pretty cool experiences. We all have. I love to hear other people's stories, and what really turns me on about somebody and having a friend friendship with them is their life experience. I don't care what they drive. I don't care what kind of money they make. I care what they have, how far they have stepped out of their comfort zone, how they have challenged themselves, even if it's just nothing more than speaking in front of large groups, or if it's going to a bar by yourself where town has been evacuated, and you want to, instead of being part of the group that leaves, you try to figure out why and go get right in the middle of it, and next thing you know, you're eating barbecue with Hell's Angels. That's my crowd. So yeah, I really dig that type of person, and I have a lot of stories like that because that's how I roll. So gonna think of some more stories to tell you guys. You can find them here, and hope you like it. Thanks.